data historically was just, a storage of numbers inside a database somewhere, right? And you would have to go grab it and do things with it. And now people are looking at data as a product. The data product's primary objective is to facilitate an end goal using data. So it could be, and it sounds super vague and very hand-wavy, but it could be anything from a data warehouse to a Tableau dashboard, or a model that predicts customer churn. It could be sales forecasts. It could be building a great search tool inside your tool. So an example would be Gmail. Gmail itself is not a data product, but it uses data products like search, autocomplete. Data products become a part of bigger products, or sometimes it's the product itself. Like a dashboard is a pure data product. You use it to visualize, use it to play with data, use it to answer questions that you may have. I would say there's kind of two pieces, one that's more like linear build and then one that's more exploratory. The linear builds are more data engineering, which is like storage, transformations, the ETL pipeline, like extract, transform, load. You know what you're trying to get, you know what the end state is, and you know what the start state is, right? So you're like, I'm getting data from here, I'm gonna do something to it, I'm gonna put it in there. So it's more like classic engineering. And then there's more of the analysis side, so like model building. And this is where this becomes more like a nuanced approach. Because you have to experiment. Sometimes you might not be able to get the answer you want. You're looking into churn rates or you're looking into funnel drop-offs, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna build a model that's gonna help me predict this. And then you look at the data, you run the model, and you're like, oh, I can't really do it with what I've got. When you're going into more of like blue sky analysis, where you're just like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? You have to kind of build in the time and the expectation that it might not actually happen. So a lot of people will look at that type of data product as potentially wasteful. And I mean, you can definitely have it untethered. So you've got to be able to create these boxes around it to say, hey, this is a go, no go at this point, or how do we know when to stop? The product management discipline applied to data gives us a lens to meet people's needs, essentially. We want to create things people use. We don't want to create things that people don't use. And how do we do that? A big part of product management is empathy. So defining the problem. A lot of the times, historically, people would just be like, collect data. I don't know what to do with it, but just collect it and put it in a spot. And now it becomes less of that, because first it kind of failed. People were just having huge amounts of data, no idea how to use it, and it just kind of went to the wayside. Now people are starting to think about what kind of problems can we solve with this data? How do I reuse this? If I make this X, can I reuse it over here? The endpoint now is built around consumption. So if I can't get it to a consumable format, a lot of the time, it is not at its full value, right? So, there's definitely models that work, and we can do lots of cool, predictive, interesting things with it. But at the end, there's an interface that you put on top of the model to help you navigate a map, to help you recognize if something's a hot dog or not, or if, predicting your route, telling you what to buy next, etc. So those, we always like to think of what the endpoint of that data is going to be. Even though it might be in a database, then we think about, how are you going to be using this database, and what's the end goal of it, and then designing around that. And that's just not technical design, it's visual design also. So we always pair in a design, a visual designer with us. So through UX, through UI, through just sometimes what does a good visualization look like? There's good and then there's great, right? We like to add that level of polish where there is a little surprise and delight also, where people aren't getting frustrated. Like the less technical you are, the more you're going to be in tune with visual. And there's an expectation now that products have to look good.